Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. Things are always subject to change, but as I record right now, there are two just absolutely fascinating stories going on in college football as it pertains to next season. 2021 season just ended. What does 2022 look like? Well, it depends on two things. The first, Jim Harbaugh. We talked about it on Monday's show. Don't need to repeat it. I think at this point it's pretty clear. It's either Raiders or Michigan. I don't think there's any in between. I would expect us to get some sort of resolution here in the very near future. Beyond that, I would also say there's another interesting story, and that is the ever-ongoing saga of Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams, we talked a ton about a few weeks ago. We talked a ton about during the regular season. But Caleb Williams, as I record here on Tuesday night, January 18th into January 19th, is still in the transfer portal. So what's going on? What is going to happen? And what would be the trickle-down effect if Caleb Williams does not choose USC? I think there's a lot of layers to this. So let's get into it and let's break it down. And at this point, you don't need me to tell you about Caleb Williams. Incredible player. 5-star, number one quarterback in the class of 2021 until Quinn Ewers reclassified. And we saw on the field the difference maker that he is. At the time, saved Oklahoma's season. At the time, elevated the program back into the national championship picture. At one point, I thought he was maybe the Heisman favorite at Oklahoma. And, of course, when the season ends, Lincoln Riley leaves. And, Caleb Williams wasn't great down the stretch, but he was banged up, whatever. Lincoln Riley had one foot out the door, whatever. Well, Caleb Williams stays. Caleb Williams plays in the bowl game. And Caleb Williams hits the transfer portal, and he does that the first week of January. He does that before the national championship game. And all these weird things started to happen in the lead up to the national championship game that week that you started to feel like, okay, it looks like we're going to get a resolution on this Caleb Williams thing soon. And all of the things pointed to one thing. Caleb Williams entered the portal as the Oklahoma quarterback. Obviously, the option to go back was always there, but they took a commitment from Dylan Gabriel, the former Central Florida quarterback. And so it didn't look like he was going to Oklahoma. And really, in the 5, 6, 7 days after Caleb Williams entered the transfer portal, all signs pointed towards him eventually ending up at USC. And the reasons why were obvious. One, Lincoln Riley's there. We all love college recruiting, high school recruiting, while we all love our school, and we all wish that kids committed to schools, not coaches. The reality is, Caleb Williams committed to Lincoln Riley coming out of high school. There was a reason he ended up at Oklahoma coming out of the Washington, D.C. area, and so it made sense to follow Lincoln Riley there. But beyond that, there were other signs that it was USC as well. First of all, he visited USC in the lead up to the national championship game that weekend before. We all saw the pictures. He was at the Rams game. I believe it was the Rams 49ers. I could be mistaken, but it was one of the Rams games. He goes to a Lakers game. And so you do the mental math in your head. He's posting on Instagram from the Rams game. He's posting on Instagram from the Lakers game. He's in Los Angeles. Well, he's going to commit to USC. Beyond that, one of Oklahoma's best skill position players, Mario Williams, really talented wide receiver from Florida, out of high school, commits to Oklahoma. And when he hits the transfer portal, he decides to leave Oklahoma. He says, wherever Caleb's going, that's who I want to play with. So Mario Williams hits the portal. Mario Williams visits USC. And oh, by the way, last weekend, Mario Williams committed to USC. And oh, by the way, on top of all of that, Jackson Dart, who was the projected starting quarterback at USC coming into next season, enters the transfer portal the day of the national championship game. And so again, I'm not a mathematician here. I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson. But visits USC. Projected quarterback enters the transfer portal. One of his good friends commits to USC. And you think it's only a matter of if not when. Yet here I am, late Tuesday, and Caleb Williams still has not committed to make a decision for his future in college football. And it's really interesting because, one, we just thought it would happen by now. Two, everything pointed to USC. But three, there's the whole academic component to this, right? And I know we make fun of academics and these kids are the student athletes, but they're really just athletes. Like, you do have to go to class and you do have to be eligible. And if Caleb Williams wants to play spring football, be enrolled, he obviously has to be enrolled for the spring semester. And so the question now becomes, is USC still the favorite? And if not, what's going on? And what I would say is this. Right now, as I record here, there's no reason to really think that USC isn't the favorite, okay? Obviously, the possibility of returning to Oklahoma is always out there, but they took Dillon Gabriel. It's worth noting that Jackson Dart, the quarterback that left USC, is expected to visit Oklahoma soon. So they are not recruiting as though they expect to bring back Caleb Williams. And so why is it taking so long for Caleb Williams to commit to USC? Is there another school involved? Is there this? Is there that? And you read all the message boards, you don't know what's true. And what I can tell you is I think there are two reasons probably that Caleb Williams is not committed to USC. One, I told you a few weeks ago when he entered the portal, I said, look, I got a buddy. He's in this kind of quarterback world where, the quarterback world is small, right? That Elite 11-ish type world and the parents, and we've all seen the shows. And he was the one that tipped me off about, 2, 3, 4 hours before Caleb Williams hit the portal. Oh, by the way, Caleb Williams is hitting the portal here soon, and that's exactly what happened. I touched base with him a few days ago, and he told me an interesting tidbit. He said, I heard the visit didn't go that well. I heard that he didn't like USC, that maybe it wasn't a Lincoln Riley thing. I'm not blaming Lincoln Riley, but that USC just wasn't what he was expecting. And I don't know what that means, and I have no insight further. All I can tell you is I do live in Los Angeles. I'm not criticizing USC. It's a beautiful campus, but it is kind of in the middle of downtown. It's not next to the beach. You can't throw a football off the practice field and it land on sand and blue water. And so I think there's at least the possibility that he had a vision of what USC was going to be in his head, and that maybe it just wasn't that. And doesn't mean he's not going to go there. It just means that I think it's at least possible that that was part of the circumstance with USC. Maybe it just wasn't what he thought, and maybe he's going to visit some other schools. I think it's worth noting. I think there's just other schools that maybe get involved. He supposedly visited UCLA while he was in Los Angeles. I can't see that happening, but who knows? There's reports about Wisconsin, which I can't see, but who knows? Maybe a Georgia, as I said, gets into the mix. There's reports that JT Daniels at Georgia is hitting the portal here in the coming days, may hit the portal by the time you listen to this. And if that's the case, then that opens a spot up at Georgia. So the point is, could be USC wasn't exactly what he thought. Could be certainly that he is considering other schools as well. I also think there's one other factor in this that has to be considered, and that's the reality that there's NIL money at stake here. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything. And by the way, there's nothing to accuse. There's nothing wrong with taking NIL money. But I bring all this up to say I do think that that's at least a possibility. I was told that, how do I put this delicate? Listen, it's not even that I was told. It's that we now live in a world where schools, where programs, where boosters can offer stuff above the table. And so it is a possibility that maybe Caleb Williams wants to commit. Maybe Caleb Williams is ready to commit somewhere. And maybe Caleb Williams' camp, maybe the adults around him, all these guys have agents now, it's above the board, is waiting to see if this school can get involved or that school can up the offer. Or maybe Oklahoma gets back into the mix and what happens if I come there? And so really, it's not even what I was told. It's just common sense of this guy has the chance to be the biggest star in college football. Right now, there are zero guardrails on the NIL stuff, and it could be a simple NIL thing. Does USC have something on the table, but can this school match it? Is USC behind in NIL? And I don't know, but I could see the scenario where they're waiting to see what kind of NIL packages come to the table if Caleb Williams decides to commit. But what I would say is it's going to be fascinating to watch. And what I would say it is especially fascinating for this reason. As great as Caleb Williams is, the world is not stopping for Caleb Williams. This is what I find really interesting. One, Oklahoma, as soon as he hit the portal, Dillon Gabriel commits to Oklahoma. And I do wonder in hindsight if maybe it was actually Oklahoma that kind of nudged Caleb Williams, not the other way around. Because Dillon Gabriel was set to enroll and start classes at UCLA. And so because of it, Oklahoma needed an answer from Caleb Williams like that day. Are you hitting the portal? Because we have a good option. And if you don't believe that if you believe you want to consider other options, then we need to go ahead and consider the fact that, we need to look at other options. But beyond that, and I think this is really important, as I mentioned, Jackson Dart, who was projected to be the starting quarterback next year at USC, hit the portal after Caleb Williams leaves. He's taking visits. He was at Ole Miss the other day posing with Lane Kiffin. He's supposedly considering Oklahoma, maybe one or two other schools. But this is not a kid that is sitting in the background waiting to see what Caleb Williams does, and if he doesn't go to USC, he's coming back to USC. He seems as though he is ready to move on, and where's my next stop, and where can I potentially play, all that good stuff. And so I bring it up because it is setting up a classic, a fascinating kind of game of chicken between USC and Caleb Williams. Because if Caleb Williams doesn't commit to USC, they could be scrambling for a quarterback. Now, a couple things. It's worth noting, USC is still coached by Lincoln Riley, right? And so because of it, as long as Lincoln Riley is the head coach, they're going to be able to bring in high-caliber quarterbacks. But there isn't one in the portal better than Caleb Williams, and there isn't one in the portal better than the one from USC that just went in. And so, one, that is a fascinating trickle-down effect. If Caleb Williams goes somewhere else, who does USC go after in the portal? And then, two, what if they don't get that super high-profile guy? We're going to find out pretty quickly how good of a head coach Lincoln Riley is, how good of a quarterback whisperer Lincoln Riley is. Now, I think he's great. Turned Baker into a Heisman Trophy winner, turned Kyler Murray into a Heisman winner, turned Jalen Hurts into a Heisman runner-up. But man, oh man, just think about what could potentially happen if Caleb Williams goes somewhere other than USC. Again, this is a story that we will continue to monitor, but you just talk about fascinating stuff. This is one that I cannot wait to see how it all shakes out, because there are no obvious answers in terms of what Caleb Williams is doing, when his time frame is, and what happens to USC if Caleb Williams ends up somewhere other than the Trojan.